Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. I want to ask you something right from the start. Have you ever felt that quiet ache? The one where you sense that even though you're showing up, even though you're giving, something's missing in the way she looks at you. Maybe you've wondered, when does a woman really know that I'm the one? What is that moment that flips the switch inside her when you stop being an option and become the choice? It's not about perfect looks, status symbols, or scripted lines. It's something much more profound and far more subtle. It's about the way you make her feel safe, but also alive. It's about the moments when you show her that your presence is not just physical, but emotional, when your words touch her, yes, but your silences feel even deeper. In this video, we're going to peel back the curtain, not into what women say they want, but into the undercurrent of what they feel when they quietly, sometimes unexpectedly, realize that you are the man they can trust, desire, and respect deeply. So stay with me. We're going to explore this carefully, gently, and honestly, because when you understand what really moves her heart, you stop chasing, and she starts recognizing what was right in front of her all along. I want to ask you something right from the start. Have you ever felt that quiet ache? The one where you sense that even though you're showing up, even though you're giving, something's missing in the way she looks at you. Maybe you've wondered, when does a woman really know that I'm the one? What is that moment that flips the switch inside her when you stop being an option and become the choice? It's not about perfect looks, status symbols, or scripted lines. It's something much more profound and far more subtle. It's about the way you make her feel safe, but also alive. It's about the moments when you show her that your presence is not just physical, but emotional, when your words touch her, yes, but your silences feel even deeper. In this video, we're going to peel back the curtain, not into what women say they want, but into the undercurrent of what they feel when they quietly, sometimes unexpectedly, realize that you are the man they can trust, desire, and respect deeply. It starts with your ability to make her feel deeply seen. Not just watched, not just complimented on the surface, but seen in a way that feels almost disarming. Imagine this: she's telling you about her day and you're not distracted. You're not rushing to solve her problems. Instead, you lean in. You notice the way her voice shifts when she talks about a conflict at work. You notice the little tension in her shoulders when she describes an interaction with a friend that left her feeling misunderstood. You listen, not because you're supposed to, but because you care, and because you care, she feels that you are attuned to her interior world. This is the first thing that makes her realize you're the one. You offer emotional presence, not just physical proximity. You know, most men think being present means being in the same room, sitting across from her at dinner, holding her hand on a walk. But presence, real presence, is about inhabiting the emotional space between you. When she speaks, she feels heard without interruption or impatience. When she's silent, she feels safe in that silence because she knows you're still with her, not retreating into indifference, but allowing her space to breathe. And this is when something extraordinary happens. Her guard lowers. She doesn't even consciously articulate it, but somewhere inside her, she says, "This man makes me feel safe to be myself." That feeling of safety doesn't come from just nodding along or offering sympathy. It's about creating a climate where she can be vulnerable without fearing judgment or dismissal. But this emotional presence must be alive. It can't be static. It isn't just being available, it's being responsive. And it's in your responsiveness that she starts to see you not just as a man she enjoys, but as a man she can trust. A man who sees her complexity, who acknowledges her contradictions, who allows her to be sad without needing to cheer her up too quickly, or to be angry without taking it personally. It's funny how often we undervalue the gift of attention. In an age where everyone's distracted scrolling, checking messages, caught up in performance and productivity, Simply being fully present with a woman makes you stand out more than any impressive gesture, and this leads us to the next layer, because presence alone is not enough to make her realize you're the one. It's essential, but what amplifies that feeling is something even more intimate, your integrity. When a woman begins to feel that your words align with your actions, when she senses that you are the same man in private as you are in public, something deep within her shifts. She begins to relax. Integrity isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. She notices that when you say you'll call, you do. When you speak of your values, they aren't just lofty ideas, they're embodied in the way you treat others, the waiter, your friends, even her. She pays attention to these small moments because they reveal who you really are and who you will be when things get hard. Women are exquisitely attuned to inconsistencies, not because they're looking for reasons to leave, but because their emotional safety depends on knowing that the man in front of them is trustworthy. If your actions contradict your words, even in minor ways, she feels that wobble in the foundation. And so when she sees that you show up reliably, that you keep your word even when it's inconvenient, that you honor her time and emotions as much as your own, it sends her a powerful message. He is real, and in a world full of superficial interactions, a man who is real, who has integrity, is a man she can imagine building a life with. The beautiful thing about integrity is that it quietly touches everything. It shows up in how you own your mistakes rather than deflect blame. It appears in how you handle disagreements, not by escalating into defensiveness or retreating into silence, but by being willing to stay in dialogue, to stay connected even when emotions run high. It is this quality that signals to her that you are not just present when things are easy, but that you can be counted on when storms arrive. And when you combine emotional presence with integrity, you begin to embody something that's rare and precious, dependability without rigidity, warmth without weakness. This is what creates that inner shift for her. She may not announce it aloud, but somewhere inside she begins to think, this man could hold space for my complexity, for my desires, for my fears. She begins to trust you, not because you asked for her trust, but because you earned it without fanfare. At this point, her realization that you might be the one is no longer based on fleeting attraction or romantic idealism. It's rooted in an embodied experience of you as a man she can truly depend on. Now that we've moved through what it means to offer real presence and to live in integrity, let's stay in this gentle, honest exploration. The next layer goes even deeper, because if you've made her feel seen and safe, and she's recognized your integrity, there is still one more current running underneath all of this that will quietly but decisively make her realize that you're not just any man, but the one she's been hoping for. And so we come to that third essential current, the one that pulls everything together, the one that feels less obvious but is often the deciding factor, your ability to embody emotional leadership. This is where her deepest realization often takes shape, when she begins to see that you're not just present and consistent, but that you create an emotional container where both of you can thrive. Emotional leadership is not about control, it's about guidance. It's about creating the emotional climate in the relationship, a climate that fosters openness, growth, playfulness, and intimacy. You see, every relationship carries its own weather, its own patterns, and when you are able to gently influence that atmosphere, you demonstrate something to her that she doesn't always even know she's longing for, safety and excitement in the same breath. She realizes you are the one when she notices that being with you makes her feel emotionally anchored and emotionally alive at once. You're not afraid to set healthy boundaries, but you also know when to soften them with kindness. You're able to hold her emotions without making them about you. When she is anxious, you don't meet her anxiety with your own. When she tests you, not maliciously, but as all human beings do when we're uncertain, you respond not with anger or defensiveness, but with steady presence and patience. In those moments she is watching, Not consciously, perhaps, but deeply, intuitively. She's registering whether you escalate conflict or de-escalate it. She's feeling whether you offer her emotional attunement or whether you retreat into emotional shutdown. And when she sees that you have this capacity not just for self-control, but for creating an emotional container where her intensity doesn't scare you, where her vulnerability doesn't overwhelm you, that's when she knows. That's when something shifts inside her and she thinks, this is a man who can hold me, who can lead us, even when I can't lead myself. This isn't about stoicism for its own sake. It's not about being cold or indifferent to feelings. Quite the opposite. Emotional leadership is about being intimate with your own emotions so you can stay connected to her, even in moments of turbulence. It's about being willing to have difficult conversations with care and courage. It's about asking questions when she seems distant rather than withdrawing. It's about leaning in when she's unsure, rather than pulling away because of your own pride or fear. You demonstrate emotional leadership when you become a man who can navigate both intensity and tenderness with ease. For example, when she expresses fear about the future, you don't minimize it or offer easy solutions. You meet her where she is, but you also offer her your clarity. We will figure this out together. Or when she becomes upset over something small, you see that it's not about the thing itself, it's about needing reassurance or feeling overwhelmed, and instead of responding to the surface issue, you respond to the deeper emotional need. What makes this quality so powerful is that it allows her to relax, not because everything is perfect or because conflict never arises, but because she senses that you can hold the container when things aren't perfect, that her emotions don't destabilize you, that your ego doesn't require her to always be at her best for you to stay steady. That steadiness, that subtle but profound capacity to lead emotionally, creates a rare form of trust. And it's often the moment when she begins to feel something she might never articulate directly, that you can not only meet her where she is, but gently guide the two of you into deeper connection. Even when circumstances or emotions are difficult, this is when her realization takes root, sometimes slowly, sometimes like a sudden awakening. This is the man I can go through life with. Not just date, not just share moments with, but build a life with, a man who sees her, who lives in integrity, and who can lead with heart and strength at the same time. And what's so beautiful is that emotional leadership has nothing to do with dominance. It has nothing to do with power over. Instead, it's about the ability to maintain emotional balance in yourself, and to extend that balance into the relationship. When a man possesses this quality, it gives her a sense of emotional shelter, a space where she can bring all of herself, her desires, her fears, her ambitions, her messiness, her joy, and feel that you will meet her with understanding, curiosity, and care. So many men underestimate the power of this. They focus on what they can achieve, what they can provide materially or externally, but what she is ultimately seeking, what makes her recognize you as the one, is the quality of emotional connection that feels nourishing, grounding, and sustainable, because in the end, love is not measured by grand gestures. It is measured by the accumulation of these small moments where you show that you can remain present, consistent, and emotionally attuned even when it's hard. And so, as you reflect on what makes a woman realize that you are the man she can truly build with, remember that it's not about perfection or performance. It's about presence, integrity, and emotional leadership woven together. Each one reinforces the other. Each one creates a feeling in her body, in her heart, that whispers, I can trust this, I can trust him. There's still more to explore, of course, because even when you embody these qualities, the dance of intimacy continues. There's a nuance that comes into play, a way you invite her to be fully herself without ever demanding perfection, and how you hold your own boundaries without aggression or withdrawal. You see, when you create a climate where she feels seen, safe, and held emotionally, something else begins to unfold between you both, something that is just as important but often overlooked. It's the quality of invitation you extend, without words, for her to be her full, authentic self. And this isn't just about accepting her, it's about welcoming her, complexity and all, with genuine curiosity rather than fear or judgment. Because in every relationship, even when love is present, there's often a hidden tension. The tension between being ourselves and being who we think our partner wants us to be. She will test this with you, whether consciously or not. She will notice how you respond to parts of her that may be less polished, less pleasant, or less predictable. The woman who will eventually recognize you as the one is the woman who feels that when she shows you her shadow, her doubts, her insecurities, her messy emotions, you don't flinch, you don't recoil, you don't try to fix or suppress them. You remain steady, curious, and present. That ability to hold her full humanity is an extension of emotional leadership, but it's also something else. It's the emotional generosity that invites her to fully exhale into your presence. And when she feels that invitation, when she senses that being herself won't cost her your affection or your respect, that's when her realization deepens even further. She thinks this is the man who doesn't just tolerate me, he loves me where I am as I am. But this generosity must be balanced, because you are not merely a container for her emotions and experiences. You are a man with your own essence, your own rhythm, and so part of what makes her realize you are the one is how you embody your own boundaries, not rigidly, not defensively, but in a way that communicates self-respect. You teach her gently how to treat you by how you treat yourself. For example, if she becomes upset and lashes out, you don't shrink into passivity, nor do you retaliate with your own aggression. Instead, you can look her in the eye and say calmly, "I hear that you're upset. I care about what you feel. But I won't allow us to speak to each other this way." In that moment, you set the emotional tone again, not from a place of control, but from leadership, kindness, and mutual dignity. When a woman feels this from you, not just that you can hold space for her complexity, but that you can hold your own boundaries gracefully, she begins to feel deeply secure. Because she knows that your love is not a performance, it's a reflection of how you live in alignment with yourself and with her. And that's what makes you magnetic to her, even in your stillness. In truth, this balance is what creates a deep polarity between a man and a woman, a dynamic tension that feels exciting and secure at the same time. She feels your steadiness, and it allows her to soften. She feels your curiosity, and it invites her to open. She feels your capacity for boundaries, and it gives her permission to trust not just your intentions, but your emotional competence. Sometimes this happens slowly, over months of subtle interactions. Sometimes it happens suddenly, in a single moment when she's overwhelmed by life, and she turns to you, and you meet her with a calm strength she wasn't expecting. In either case, her realization isn't loud, it isn't announced, but it is decisive. She begins to carry you in her heart differently, not just as a man she enjoys or desires, but as a man she trusts to walk beside her. And the beautiful thing is that this shift changes her. When she feels this quality in you, she naturally starts bringing more of herself to you, not just her light, but her depth. She becomes more affectionate, more vulnerable, more invested. She doesn't even need to say it explicitly, but you'll feel it. Her energy becomes softer, more open, more surrendered. Not because you demanded it, but because you inspired it. And as this dynamic unfolds, it gives rise to one of the most powerful aspects of any relationship, reciprocity. She meets your emotional leadership not with resistance, but with appreciation. She meets your presence with her own. She begins to build with you, not because you asked her to, but because she feels safe to do so. At this stage, you are no longer simply someone she enjoys being around. You are someone she imagines a future with, someone she trusts to hold her not just when she's at her best, but when she's unraveling. And what's so important to understand is that this is not something you achieve by convincing her. It's something you embody. It's not something you announce, it's something she feels. So as you sit with this reflection, know that what makes a woman realize you're the one is not about grand gestures or impressive displays. It's about this quiet, consistent, embodied presence. It's about showing up fully, not just with words, but with the integrity of your actions. It's about creating an emotional environment where she can flourish, where her complexity doesn't frighten you, and where your steadiness becomes the anchor she can trust. When you offer her this rare combination, emotional presence, integrity, emotional leadership, generosity, and graceful boundaries, you create a relationship that feels fundamentally different from any she's known before, not transactional, not conditional, but nourishing. And it's in this nourishment that her realization fully crystallizes. He is the one I can grow with, love with, and trust with the most tender parts of myself. When she reaches that point of deep emotional trust, something very subtle but very powerful begins to happen beneath the surface of your relationship. She stops testing your steadiness and instead begins to lean into your energy fully. And when she leans in this way, it's not just about comfort, it's about respect, admiration, and desire converging in a way that feels alive. Because when a woman realizes you're the one, her desire for you takes on a different quality. It's no longer just attraction or infatuation. It's a desire that's rooted in admiration. She doesn't just feel passion toward you, she feels a respect that magnifies her attraction. And here's what's important. This deep respect is not given lightly. It emerges when she witnesses your self-possession, your ability to stay rooted in your own values, your ability to speak your truth calmly, and your ability to hold a vision for both of you even when circumstances feel uncertain. This respect shows itself in the way she starts to soften around you without needing to protect herself so much. She starts to trust your decisions, to value your perspective, and to invite you deeper into her emotional and intimate life. This is where emotional leadership transcends into something almost magnetic. You become a man she not only trusts, but one she feels proud to submit her trust to. That word submission can carry so many misunderstandings. It is not about dominance or control. It is about what happens naturally when a woman feels deeply held, deeply understood, and deeply respected. When she sees that your strength is not about overpowering her, but about holding a space where she feels free to express, free to surrender into softness, free to bring her whole self without fearing she will be hurt or misunderstood. In this way, her respect and admiration for you aren't separate from her love and desire. They are all interconnected. When she sees you honoring yourself while holding space for her, she not only trusts you emotionally, she trusts you with her heart, her body, her vulnerabilities, her future. And that trust, it changes the energy between you completely. It's as if the guard she didn't even know she was holding finally comes down. She allows herself to imagine a shared life not because you promised her things, but because you have shown her, moment after moment, that you are dependable, thoughtful, intentional, and present. What's beautiful about this stage is that this is often when the woman herself begins to give back to you more than she ever did before. When a woman feels safe and admired, when she feels seen and valued, her nature is to reciprocate in ways that nourish you too. She becomes softer, more nurturing, more attentive, not because you demanded it or expected it, but because she wants to. Her respect for you awakens a different part of her, and this is where a truly beautiful polarity emerges between two people. This is also where mutual emotional generosity flourishes. You might notice that she begins to express appreciation more easily, to encourage you in your pursuits, to support you when you're tired or stressed, not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of the emotional security you've given her. And in these moments, your emotional leadership becomes even more vital, not as something you must consciously exert, but as something you naturally embody. Your steadiness becomes a gift to her, and in return, her love and softness become a gift to you. It becomes a beautiful cycle where your strength invites her surrender, and her surrender feeds your strength. What most men don't realize is that this is often the moment when her realization about you deepens in ways she may not even be able to articulate. It's no longer about evaluating you or weighing whether you are a good partner. It becomes a quiet knowing in her heart, this is the man I want to stand beside. Not because you're perfect, not because you always have the answers, but because you've shown her consistently and with care that you will not abandon her emotionally. You've shown her that you're capable of holding space for the complexity of love itself, with all its messiness, all its uncertainty, all its vulnerability. This is where your role as a man takes on a different quality, not as a fixer, not as a provider in the material sense alone, but as a co-creator of a relationship where two people can thrive. And when a woman feels that possibility with you, she begins to let go of the doubts and fears that might have kept her guarded before. She starts to imagine not just loving you, but building a life with you. And in this space of mutual trust and emotional security, desire doesn't diminish. In fact, it deepens, because the polarity between you becomes less about superficial attraction and more about a profound emotional dance between masculine steadiness and feminine openness. The beauty of this stage is that the effort feels lighter now, not because challenges disappear, but because the foundation you've built together makes navigating those challenges easier. Conflicts feel less threatening. Differences feel less like threats and more like opportunities for understanding. You begin to see that intimacy is not a static state you achieve, but an ongoing, living dialogue between two people who are committed not just to staying together, but to growing together. And this is precisely where many men stumble without realizing it. They think that once she starts to soften, once she starts to respect them and trust them, they can relax and stop being intentional. But what truly makes her realize you're the one is when you demonstrate that your presence, your integrity, your emotional leadership aren't tactics, they are your nature. They are how you move through life. They are how you show up in every relationship, including your relationship with yourself. It is this consistency, not perfection, not control, that reassures her soul that she can truly rest with you. And that resting, that sense of peace and emotional shelter, that's when she knows. That's when she stops wondering if you're the right man and starts cherishing the fact that you're already there, already beside her, already holding her in all the ways that matter. And when she reaches this place with you, when all those quiet realizations have woven themselves together into the fabric of how she feels in your presence, you might not even notice it at first. There may not be a grand declaration or some cinematic moment where she suddenly says, "You're the one." Instead, it's something that lives in her gaze, in the way she reaches for your hand absent-mindedly, in how she includes you in her plans without hesitation, in the way her energy softens and orients itself toward you naturally, because at this point her realization isn't a single thought or decision. It's a feeling, a profound embodied knowing that your relationship has become her emotional home. You've made her feel safe, seen, respected, cherished, and inspired. You've shown her presence that isn't conditional on convenience. You've demonstrated integrity that isn't performative but lived. And you've offered emotional leadership that doesn't dominate but invites, that doesn't demand but guides gently and consistently. But even here, there's something subtle and crucial to understand. Her realization that you're the one isn't a finish line. It's an opening. When a woman recognizes that depth of partnership, her heart opens further, but it also invites you into deeper responsibility. Not responsibility in a burdensome way, but in the way that you are now part of something sacred. The ongoing dance of maintaining that space where both of you feel nourished, respected, and loved. This is where your attentiveness matters most, not as an obligation, but as a joyful expression of your love for her. You begin to notice the small things even more, the way she sighs after a long day, the way she curls into you when she's seeking comfort, the way she shares her ideas, her dreams, her worries, and how she subtly looks for your reaction, your reassurance, your grounding energy. And in these moments you realize that what truly makes a man the one is not simply that he has achieved something externally, but that he becomes a mirror for her best self. You reflect back to her not just love, but acceptance, not just attraction, but admiration, not just attention, but attunement. She feels that being with you makes her want to rise, to soften, to grow. You create a partnership where her feminine energy can unfold fully, where her ambitions are supported, where her emotional range is welcomed, where her quirks are cherished rather than criticized. And in return, you receive a depth of love and devotion that few men will ever experience, not because you demanded it, but because you cultivated the conditions in which it could flourish naturally. At this point, the relationship becomes something far beyond roles or expectations. It becomes a living ecosystem of trust, affection, growth, and play. You are no longer measuring love by how often she expresses it outwardly, because you feel it everywhere, in her tone, in her presence, in her trust, in the way she gives herself to you emotionally, and physically with more freedom, more abandon, more joy. This is the kind of bond where love deepens over time rather than diminishing, where intimacy becomes richer, not more routine, where challenges become opportunities to understand each other more fully rather than reasons to disconnect. And so the real question is not simply, how do I get her to realize I'm the one? The deeper question is, how do I become the kind of man who consistently inspires that realization, not as a strategy but as a way of being? Because when you live this way, not performing these qualities but embodying them, you stop chasing women's validation altogether. Instead, you naturally draw to you the kind of woman who recognizes and treasures who you are at your core. In the end, it is your integrity that grounds her. It is your presence that calms her. It is your emotional leadership that anchors her. And it is your generosity and boundaries that make her feel safe enough to bring all of herself to you, fully, openly, joyfully. So take a moment to reflect. Are you cultivating that quality of presence? Are you living with the kind of integrity that allows her to relax and trust you? Are you practicing emotional leadership in a way that sets the emotional tone in your relationship, not through force, but through attunement and steadiness? And are you inviting her to be herself while also honoring yourself fully? If the answer is yes, you don't need to convince her of anything. Her realization will unfold naturally, in its own time and in its own way, and it will be unmistakable. Not just for her, but for you as well. You will feel it in the way she loves you back, in the way she trusts you, in the way she chooses you again and again, not because you asked her to, but because you became the man who makes her feel at home. And so, as we close this conversation today, remember that becoming the one is never about chasing approval or crafting perfection. It's about cultivating presence, embodying integrity, leading emotionally, holding your boundaries gracefully, and allowing her to meet you in that space with her full heart. When you do that, her realization won't be loud or dramatic, but it will be deep, lasting, and real. Thank you for spending this time with me here at the Intimacy Lab. If you felt moved or awakened by anything we've shared today, I encourage you to reflect on it, not just intellectually, but emotionally. And I would love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your questions in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if this message resonates with you, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so we can continue these conversations together. Here's to love that is deep, grounded, generous, and true, and to becoming the man who naturally inspires that kind of love in return.